Happy Sunday, our Gimme the Mic family, where we motivate, inspire, and cultivate future leaders. We got a triple back with our guest, Paige White, criminal and civil rights attorney, founder of EPW Law and counsel at Ben Crump Law. Miss White is coming back for a third time to help us talk about some high profile civil rights cases and some other issues that are rooted in justice, care, and the community. So we're going to talk to our sponsors, then we're going to get right back into motivating and inspiring the community.
The idea of it being a children's crusade is a dramatic way to look at it, but in the South, you're not a child at 15. You can go to jail, you can get beaten up, you know that you get arrested. So on one side, you had segregation training you to accept oppression and be humble and allow yourself to be pushed around. On the other side, you had parents who were teaching you how to stand up and be free without doing anything illegal and without getting killed.
The young people will start marching and bring Birmingham to its knees. Robert Kennedy calls King and says, "We can't afford to have young people hurt. Call this off. We don't want you to do this." And King says in an irate voice, "Black children are hurting every day." The next day, the young people burst out the doors of 16th Street Baptist Church, and now Bull Connor has lost it. And he deploys the hoses and the dogs, and that is the turning point.
It's awful to see an adult hosed down or attacked by a dog or beaten with a baton. It's a completely different thing to see a 9-year-old hosed down, and really a 9-year-old who doesn't comprehend. That is a powerful message that gets sent out to the world, and it's one, unsurprisingly, that the world reacts to in horror, in shame, and in re-engagement with these movements. Those images, they are seared into the nation's brain.
Let me just say, there are lawyers right now who are afraid to call what's happening murder.
Shame.
And let me be very clear. Shame. And let me be very clear that what this administration is doing across this country is murdering people. It is unconstitutional and it is wrong. If you know a lawyer that is not here today, go tell them that they need to be here today.
That's right.
If you know a lawyer that's inside of their jobs right now, working their 9 to 5, we are entrusted with defending the Constitution and standing up for what's right. It is not brave what I'm doing. It is what we swore to do when we took an oath as attorneys and people who uphold the law.
That's right.
So tell every single person who is a lawyer or part of a legal institution to step up and join DC Lawyers Against Trump. Thank you.
So, again, today we're going to be talking to civil rights advocate Elizabeth Paige White. She got kicked off for some technical difficulties, but that's not going to stop the party. We're going to be discussing some of the biggest cases going on now. We're going to talk about the Nolan Wells situation. Also, we're going to talk about the need for us to be prepared for midterm elections. A conversation me and my wife were having today about the midterm elections is, who are your local representatives? Even our most savvy, political, active community people are still having trouble identifying who's going to represent our interests in this upcoming election. So if you haven't went to a forum, if you haven't decided on who your our representative is going to be. The time is now to start collecting that information so that we are prepared to take back government, take back your community, and really have government stand for what you want it to believe in. So Elizabeth is going to, Paige is going to come in and talk about that. Hopefully she hops right back on. But again, we know one of the biggest cases in the community right now was this Nolan Wells case. If you haven't, um, if you haven't heard about it, if you haven't seen what's going on about it, but it's about a young man that was on looks like a vacation or a trip, and with some friends, and the friends returned from this trip, and this man didn't return. They find him a couple days later in seems like it was in the water and dead and missing parts of his throat and whole trauma to the back of the head. There's a lot of unresolved issues with the manner in which the young man lost his life. So we'll touch on that. And like I said, we'll speak about also the situation in midterm elections. We'll also talk about closing. We'll talk about what future lawyers, future attorneys will need to do to participate in this battle, or at least the battlefield. So, Woody, can we run the sponsor ad, or we just wait for Elizabeth to come back?
Thank you so much for inviting me out, girl. I've been so stressed.
Girl, you are so welcome. But listen, who did your hair?
Oh, all dolled up.
What is that?
All Dolled Up is a series of stores and salons all throughout South Florida. I get my hair silked out every month. I can do that because I'm part of the Texture Club.
Girl, well, I need to get to All Dolled Up and sign up for this texture club. You look amazing.
And cheers to that.
Just like everyone, my life is jam-packed. I'm always on the move. Whether it's personal or business, I live in the fast lane. But self-care, mentally and physically, is top priority for me. That's why I'm a part of the Texture Club at my favorite salon. They always treat you like family, and that experience leaves me wanting more. So instead of worrying about my ends, treatments, and styles, my easy monthly subscription to the Texture Club solves everything. I let the pros focus on my hair, so I can focus on the other things that matter in my life.
Round of applause for Paige White. Welcome back, Paige.
Thank you.
So, thank you for taking out the time to come back to give me the mic. You know, we're really, really driving this platform to our community, our businesses, our friends, our supporters. And again, the goal is to motivate, inspire, and create the future leaders of this country. And you've been empowered with a law degree. You've been empowered to be around some amazing civil rights leaders. And you're on the battlegrounds. You're on the ground floor of some of these challenges. And we'll get into all the things that you're doing. But first one we kind of jumped into, let's jump right in. One of the things that we noticed Ben is on, the biggest story in America right now, Nolan Wells. And the Nolan Wells matter has drawn a lot of public concern, a lot of speculation. Nobody knows what's going on. But in a case like this, like how do lawyers, how do you honor the family's need for answers, but still protect the integrity of like an investigation?
So, I mean, it is the biggest story right now because of how many questions there are. And so I think for a civil rights lawyer, your goal right now is to get those questions answered. So you want to see what the government is going to share with you, how the investigation unfolds, because right now, all of the actual physical evidence outside of Nolan's body, that his phone, the actual evidence that was taken from him when he was found, all of that is in police custody. And so the people that are conducting the actual investigation and have the evidence are the police, but Attorney Crump has gotten an independent autopsy, and there are things that you can do as a civil rights lawyer to push and gather additional information.
So So we already know how the world divides this story up. The elephant in the room. Black kid missing. He's with his white friends. Race comes immediately into it.
Absolutely.
How do we be responsible and not say that, hey, this is a race hate crime versus kids just maybe something went wrong with kids? Like, how do we responsibly do that? Or do you have a strategy for that? Or what's your take on
I think it's suspicious if you have a group where Nolan is the only black child and he just goes missing, and the evidence and the pieces are not exactly coming together. You know that there was an independent autopsy. There's been talk of there being red discoloration on the back of his head. There's supposedly a picture that was released of Nolan leaving the island, which would directly contradict what
it?
the what two of his friends have come out and said about what happened that night. And so I think it's hard not to talk about race when you have a situation like this and the evidence is not exactly adding up. I don't know how you don't get there given those factors.
Right. So one of the things I heard, and again I haven't been following as closely, but from what I heard, as soon as the incident kind of leaked in, and there was a small little ripple of, oh, there's an issue with some kid Nolan. Um, you had the white kids lawyer up really quickly,
Correct.
and me being a new attorney, you being an attorney, that's not very. We can't just lawyer up like that as well. That's another kind of concern. Like, you got one that has a judge as a relative. The other two just immediately get counsel representation for what's going to look like, maybe some criminal suits coming, criminal charges coming. Now, what can we do? Do we have to have like a Ben Crump in our pocket to get justice? If Ben doesn't show up with a million cameras, what happens to somebody in that situation?
Well, unfortunately, when you talk about getting justice, a lot of the times that looks like something that's completely out of anyone's hands. It looks like criminal charges being brought against someone or other people who may have perpetrated this crime. And unfortunately, Attorney Crump nor any other lawyer really has the power to make that decision. It's the prosecutors in the district attorney's office. Now, what Attorney Crump does do extremely well, and that pushes prosecutors. I think now the Jackson District Attorney's Office has agreed to present the case to a grand jury. I think that when you have an attorney that shows up and brings media spotlight to what happens, you are pushing back against what happens so many times, which is that nothing happens or very little happens. We have a situation here in DC where my client was hit and killed by a gentleman who was being chased by, but who the police are saying was being chased by the police. There hasn't been a single arrest yet, and my client died. And so I think that
Mhm.
there are certainly other great, amazing attorneys, but the impact that Attorney Crump has and the way that the media responds to him is certainly unique.
Right. That's unfortunate. And again, it comes back down to the point about being empowered, one with knowledge, but then you also got to have somebody who's in control of these resources. Uh, the state attorney's office, they work for the state, they work for us as a citizen to protect us, but it can also be weaponized against us if done improperly.
Certainly. And again, we don't, they're supposed to be working for us, but many times what the people want to see is not what happens.
Mhm. Okay, so with that, we'll keep an eye on Nolan Wells. We'll keep an eye on your case, because although Nolan Wells is the biggest case in the country, it's probably not the only situation that this type of omission, this type of neglect is being done. But it has the cameras on it now. But there's hundreds of these cases all over the country where young minority children, young minority people are not getting the coverage and protection they need because they don't have a Ben Crump or a Paige White in the well.
That's right.
So so one of the ways to get active community, active resources is elections. Like your state attorney is an elected official, your public defender is an elected official, your representation matters. So we're in midterms. As we approach these midterms, what does Paige White believe is at stake for communities?
Oh, there's so much at stake. We're watching this president unilaterally do what he wants, and we need a Congress that's going to push back and push against what he is doing and not back it. There are a number of elections right now that are so important, particularly in Michigan, New York, Ohio. Um, and I think now in the Democratic Party, we're really seeing a shift. We're seeing a number of Democratic socialists be elected into office, and that is becoming a movement within our own party. But I think that the we as a country are just done with having the lip service politicians, and we want people that are going to work for us and push back against this fascist president. And so I think there's so much on the line. We're watching the Supreme Court rip away rights left and right. Um, and so the consequences are dire.
So you spoke about some. Who's your favorite politicians out there right now? Who are you really looking at? Who's somebody you can look at like this is the future of what we need? You know, me before we got on, we were saying somebody like you would be a great person to be in front of us. But give us some of your top. Who's your top politician right now on the radar for Paige White? Get things
Oh,
done.
my top politician is Zoran Mamdani, hands down. What he is doing in New York, what he is doing generally is just showing that we've just been getting lip service for so long. We've heard so many things like we can't balance the budget. We can't balance the budget. It's always just going to be unbalanced. It's this chronic deficit that we have. He balanced the budget by taxing the millionaires and the billionaires,
Mm.
which is exactly how we balance the budget in our cities and states, and that's how we can do that. We've been talking about closing Rikers Island for as long as I can remember, at least 10 plus years. He actually signed the legislation to make it go forward. So he is making it very clear that if they wanted to, they would, and that if you want to, you can. And so he is hands down my favorite. I hope that he does more beyond New York.
And
Yes.
he brought them an NBA championship too. How did he pull that off?
Yeah. I mean, New York is really
There's a couple
living,
wins
New
up there.
York is in their best era right now.
Okay. Shout out my New Yorkers. I mean, a lot of people went up there for that event. And okay, so he's doing some great stuff. So we're gonna keep an eye out on the New York. Anybody in the number two slot for you that we can look out for?
I think Malat Kairos in Colorado is also a really strong candidate. She is also a Democratic socialist and thankfully beat out the incumbent Democratic Diana DeGette that was in that race as well. And so she's probably my second favorite.
The term democratic socialist. Should I be afraid of that? They this administration, this country has made us so afraid of these terms. Explain democratic socialist for me. How does that? How do we
It's
get there?
I I think the thought of it scares people because it kind of directly contradicts with capitalism. It says um, we don't have to step on each other and bleed as much money as we can and exploit people. It's actually that we all deserve health care, we all deserve housing, we all deserve food. And I think that just humans, that's something that we can understand on a human level, but for some reason, again, socialism pushes back against the status quo. But it's certainly nothing to be afraid of. Again, New York is living its best era right now. Mamdani is establishing city-run grocery stores. I think you saw whenever it was snowing, he paid people like an actual living rate, and people went out and shoveled the snow. And New York was one of the least impacted cities when we talked about the snowcrete unlike in DC where it just built up forever. But
Mm.
I think that we're seeing that this is something that's real and attainable, and yeah, abolish ICE, like just very human things that we shouldn't kidnap people and break away families and treat each other like we are human beings.
So, so we also talked about pregame. Our pregame talked about this rampant federalism, federal government. Uh, Kind of contradicts the conservative values of smaller government, more states power. But how do we get to a party that believed in small government, strong state power, to such an overreaching federal government now? Like, how do we get there?
It's
Isn't that a
I think that
contradiction?
I think that like so many things with this president and the Republican Party, there's so many contradictions, and that's one of them. You know, I see so many Republican evangelicals or evangelicals that talk about God and how much they love God and are cheering on literal families being ripped apart, children being left without parents. And it's just so contradictory. I think that it's just been representative of what we've seen from this party, because now the feds are running everything. The DC is occupied currently by federal agents. You can't walk a block in DC without seeing the National Guard, and so this
Did it
administration
resolve?
is doing what it's always done.
So this administration said it would resolve your crime problem in DC. Has it resolved crime at least?
It has not at all. The National Guard isn't solving crimes.
Okay, so it's a police state.
Yes.
Okay. So okay, for young people, the future is young, younger than us. They are very young and they're frustrated. They're disengaged with politics. They don't like it. They are watching lip service from both parties. Well, how do you think we can get them engaged? What would Paige White do to get the young base engaged in this political theater again?
I think just figuring out what moves people and what people are passionate about, because politics, you might not do politics, but politics is going to do you. And so there is some overlap. There is something that you are going to be directly affected by. So whether or not you want to get involved with a certain political candidate, that's one thing. There's so many different grassroots political organizations, or not political, community organizations that you can join to actually provide grassroots on the ground help and push back against things that way. I am not, I struggle to find a second politician who I love so much, because I really don't idolize many of them. Um,
So
because
when
I
we asked
really
you, you
think
were like, "No, do not give me that label of politician. I don't want. I want to get things done." When I think of it as well, similar to you, I think of if you want to get things done, you don't want the restraints of that machine. You just want to get it done.
that's right.
Fine. I'm kind of on board with you on that. I understand it, but it
Okay.
seems like that's where we're at.
It seems
Um,
like what?
that's where we're at. It seems like that's where we're
Yep.
at. It seems like we elect them, but they don't have the freedom or the ability to get things done because they're so restrained. They got to play nice to this guy, nice to that guy. They can't just make a hard call on this is wrong and this is right.
And again, I think that that's why I really love Mamdani and his work so much, because he came out and said Netanyahu is a war criminal. That's something that Democrats in Congress are still hesitant to say because of APAC funding. And just calling the truth for what it is. And you see how Trump capitulated to him immediately when he was in his office. He had no bad things to say about him to his face. Again, just I think that this whole notion that we have to play fair in the sandbox is not true. It's certainly not what they are doing, and that we can actually stand for something and still get change.
Okay. So our future lawyers, they're watching fresh out of law school. I should have a ton of my friends watching, or they'll be watching this video. And ABA is under attack. You've seen the ABA attack. ABA is under attack. Florida, we've just moved away. I think our Supreme Court moved away from the ABA as the single accreditation body of our state. I think Texas has followed. I think California as well. Do you have anything that a future lawyer in law school should be prepared for in a world where even lawyers are going to be on a different landscape of how we operate and when we get our education?
I think that there are still places that we can find. I think that there was a reason why we have the MBA. It's because we as Black people weren't accepted into the ABA. So now when the ABA is removing its DEI requirement and capitulating to Trump, it shouldn't surprise anyone. And I was a member of the ABA and immediately withdrew my membership when that happened. Um, there are still organizations that stand for something. Like I said, the NBA, the National Bar Association, is certainly one of them. The American Association for Justice right now is one of them. But I really do a lot of work with community organizations, and I wish that more lawyers would do that. And get their education and their activism from the people on the front lines doing the work.
Okay. Fair enough. So the community approach kind of helps us answer that question as well. Like these humongous national organizations are so big, they have to kind of capitulate, or they lose their salary, or they lose their power. But with the community organization, the power stays within the community, stays with the people.
That's right.
Like that philosophy. So give me some advice for a new lawyer who feels pressure. I want to do community work, but I got the student loans, I got billables. How do you juggle this? I know I'm going to get hit with this in my inbox. I want to do
Listen,
that, but I can't afford it.
I'm always saying that you can get involved. I know plenty of people in big law who will ask me a question of what do I do? How do I get involved? That money that you're making, some of it is going to go to your loan, some of it can go to grassroots organizations. Those billable hours that you put in, you can give some of those hours on your weekend to attend these community organizations and these fights. If you can't do that, you can let people know who you are. Um, it's so interesting how our community does not, like you said, have access to lawyers. And so even if you're in big law, you don't necessarily do civil rights work, you know someone who does. And to be able to be a resource for a community organization when something is happening, to be able to connect with other lawyers is an invaluable resource.
Right. I noticed like I'm just starting out and I got a lot of free time on my hands, luckily. And I'm going to all these events and there's just not a lot of lawyers there. There's always a few that show up here and there. It's mainly in the executive leadership roles. But I'm just like, man, they're so busy they can't play almost the activist role. But I'm in the activist role because I guess I'm not busy. But we'll figure out how to juggle that and manage it as the needs need to get met. But that's the struggle that hopefully that counselors and future law students will solve when they get into the profession. Hopefully, we made it available for them to where they can participate. Thank you for those organizations that you
Of
mentioned
course.
as well. So, as we wrap up, what's next for Paige White?
Just continuing to fight, handle these cases, grow my firm, and trying to enjoy life along the way.
Are you hiring? Are you looking for any interns from a particular marketplace? Hopefully, St. Thomas.
Well, I will say I do take semester and summer interns. We are finalizing our fall class now, but looking for spring. And so you can look to LinkedIn for more information whenever the application opens.
Okay, great. So, lightning round, counselor, answer quickly. Don't think
Okay.
too much about them. This is going to be a little bit more lighthearted. I know we talked about taking over federal government, fighting equal justice and crime, but your walk-up song before a major hearing.
Oh, T Grizzly, first day out.
What? Okay. Legal phrase you would ban from emails.
It's my understanding.
Courtroom ready or camera ready? Which takes longer for Paige?
Camera ready.
If your law career was a reality show, what would it be? What title would it be?
It would be some sort of Olivia Pope mix with the Lincoln Lawyer.
Oh, nice. It's important that lawyers, the snack that carried you through the longest workday. Because you know we skipping lunch.
I always skip lunch. I always do bananas. I can go grab them downstairs from the cafe and eat them throughout the day.
Okay, and our final sentence, finish this sentence. Being a lawyer is 20% of the law and 80% of
Grit.
grit. All right. Thank you, Paige White. Thank you, our
Thank
Give Me the Mic
you.
audience. We have motivated, inspired, and cultivated the future leaders of this community. And with that being said, we would like you to donate to Hair in the Spirit. And Hair in the Spirit is going to do something to get those funds back into the community. This for the legal segment. Anything donated this segment go to the legal segment, hopefully. And Paige White will continue to fight with you, and we'll be following along on your social. And that should be at the bottom in the captions. And thank you guys for attending Give Me the Mic live. Thank you, Paige.
Thank you. Thank you.